Good morning, everyone. We joined once again. Andy is wrapping up his web services sessions. This is the third session in Andy's web service webinars. So if you've missed either of the first two, be sure to go back and watch those again.
They're posted on the event. I've got the links on the event for the first two.
Great, perfect. And then today, along with wrapping up the web services, he's going to start talking about how to use those from within mobile.
Yep.
And when Andy gets done today, I'm going to, since version 21 feature document was released this week, I'm going to take a quick perusal through that for you and highlight some of the features that we are most excited about with version 21.
Yeah, Pete, send Wolfgang the link.
I just invited him again, but I'll take care of that. We'll let you take over.
Well, good morning, everybody. We've been through this a couple of times now, and one of the things that we've gone through is, okay, what all are we doing as far as the web service? So let's kind of reapproach the subject here. There's a couple of new things that I added to this that we hadn't done before, and basically this was to be able to, from the device itself, actually send the information to the web service. You're going to ask why I use the web services versus anything else, because to be honest with you, they're really very robust as far as what you can do, because it's all WINDEV language and everything. Second of all, you can actually open up the WSDL to be used by other devices, things that you didn't build. Okay, so if you got a nice little deal there with a website and other stuff that you want to show off what you're doing, things like that, then it's excellent to use this. Last thing on the list is I get to really invest it into using the same file methodology for both iOS, Android, and Windows 10, Windows Mobile, which we can really start playing with in version 21. So, overall, I think that this is a absolutely one of the better things to do. There's 90% or biggest chunk of mobile applications all deal with either REST or web services to get their data and send their data, and that's the reason why we go down this path. So, going across and looking at this, the ones I added in there, I went ahead and added in an ACD member, which is an add, change, delete member, and we can see where what I've done now is received a structure of the member. This is the same structure that I have listed up here that we retrieve the data with on our device. See, so I'm just sending it right back as the same structure, and I'm setting one additional parameter, which is what's it going to be? What's the action type? It's either going to be 1, 2, or 3. Add, change, delete. That's what I'm doing. So once I get that, I put it in here. I actually, since I have the save record returns a true or false and whether it was successful, I can actually make a result for that. The ret-val is return structure, and I can return the true or false on whether that was successfully added. Simple as that. The other one was a little bit more involved, and that dealt with the order. We had talked about where we had sent the orders, but we really didn't have any in the database. So I created a new structure that we can define, which is ACD order header structure. This one basically does an add, change, or delete to the order itself. And the thing about it is that we have the order header here, and then I have the order detail data. So I have the entire array of the details of that order. Now, the cool part about this is this allows me at this point in time to literally send the entire order as one full matchup. I can send it all as one. Okay, and we can go from there and send it in. Now this is where we make the difference here, because then when I send it in, again I send the same thing. I send in the order header and action type. The only difference is in the detail records themselves, I've also added in its own action type. So basically, if I have an order that I'm changing and adding a new item to it, or changing an item because somebody said, hey, no, I didn't want 10 of those, I only wanted 5 of those. Okay? That's what I wanted to do. So in doing this, guess what? Now I can handle that because inside I have an action type of whether it's nothing, add, change, or delete. And I can handle it from that standpoint there, and I save it, and again, we're good to go on it. So that's the last ones that I added to be able to use inside the mobile device. Everything else was already there. The fetch members, order details, header details, all of that was already there. We had tested this previously in the second one, so we had done pretty good with it. So now we're going to get into mobile. Now let's talk about the mobile itself for just a moment. You have basically 3 or 4 different platforms you can work with, and we're going to work with one platform at the moment, which is the Android. The Android itself is probably the easiest ones to work with because of the fact that it's being able to get it on an Android device and fully test it. One of the tools that I found that you certainly would have an excellent time of dealing with this is a product called BlueStacks. And what BlueStacks does is it actually is a full-blown Android VM virtual machine, basically, and it allows you to literally run it truly as an Android machine inside your Windows environment. So when we get done with this, we're actually going to run it on that Android device, and I'm fixing to show it to you. I'm turning it on at the moment. So that's something I would suggest that everybody that's testing these things, that, because you can always pass it to your Android device and do it, but after a while that gets to be a little bit of a pain when you're just trying to look to see where everything looks right, where everything kind of feels right, are you getting the data right, things like this. And basically I have this little product here, okay, and I've got all of the items with it, and you're off and running. So I've got all the apps here that I want to mess with, and it'll give you games and things like that, but it allows me to run those apps right here. I can run every one of them right here. So this is how we'll end up testing, so you guys can see how that's done. So we may well separate and do 2 things on the mobile. We may not be able to get it all done today, which means we may have a 4th session. It won't be a web service session, it'll be more of a mobile session, okay, rather than a web service session. But second of all, I want to go ahead and announce that this fall, I will be putting together a tech summit on mobile and web services. That's going to be announced, but it'll be a tech summit on mobile services limited to about 10 people, where we will go in depth in building and utilizing WINDEV Mobile for both iOS and Android, as well as writing the web service to make the entire thing work. That will be this fall. So I want to go ahead and do that, and you'll see more about that as we go along. I think the final full announcement will probably be sometime in May for everybody to get prepared for it. So let's get started. We want to create a new application, new project. That's what we want to do. So we're going to create a new project, and I'm going to make it an Android project. So let's go ahead and make this my class test mobile. And we'll put this down in my deal so I won't forget where I put it. That's not where I want it. I want it down here. So we'll go. Okay, so we have that right there. Hey, Wolfgang made it. Turn off your mic, Wolfgang. Go to the next step, and now we've got the different ones we want to do. And this is basically setting up the configuration. So we got the Android application is what we wanted to work with, and we're going to go through it. It's going to actually go look for my Android SDK already, and it'll find it on the C drive where it should. And of course it did. Next step is how are we going to generate it? We're going to do it for a specific device or various devices. I'm going to go ahead and generate this for various because I don't know what you guys are going to use it on. And we're going to do phones and tablets, or both. Well, I'm going to do tablets only. And the reason why is because this is going to be a little bit bigger with your order forms and everything, so it really is not going to do that great on a phone. So we'll go ahead and do it for a tablet only. And of course, if you have that software, you'll be able to see it on there and run it just fine. So what are we going to do it on a tablet? We're going to change the development, and we can come into and pick up, say, a Samsung Galaxy 3 10-inch would be fine. We'll do that one. Now, here's kind of the cool part about this process. It's my understanding under version 21, we actually have the ability to see what it looks like on multiple platforms at the same time. So that's going to be something to take a look at. If you haven't gone and got the version 21 PDF download and gone through the feature sets, you're going to like them. There's quite a few little feature sets that you're going to like. Do we use the SCM or not? I'm not going to use the SCM for this. Odd anomaly that I don't use an SCM. The SCM, even if it's mine and mine only, makes no difference. It'll save my butt half the time, so I just don't. I use it all the time. I don't use the standard programming charter. It drives me crazy, so I don't use it. So now I've got the different types in here, and I like the active Android or the Fox. We'll go ahead and use the Fox. English, let me add my American and make that primary and take away the English so that way I can get some stuff right the way I want to look at it. And do we have a database? Yes, I'm going to use a database, but I'm going to create a new one, and I'm going to show you what I do with this. What is the one problem you have with any mobile device? Are you in network, out of network? Do you have internet access, or are you roaming? You know, different things like this. In the U.S., we do have that issue where we can get into areas that have no cell service, or the cell service you got does not include data. So I want to make sure that I can keep the data on the device without losing it. So I'm going to create a new database. And so it's going to create that, and what's it going to be? Well, I like the SQLite. It's not that I don't like the SQL Classic. It's pretty good, and you can have multiple files in there, but I'm a little bit of a cheater when it comes to that, and a little bit lazy because I have to maintain two different sets of files. I'm not opposed to it. Don't get me wrong. I'm not opposed to it. I think that if you like the HF file and do the Classic and got it all set up, go for it. Do what you want to do. I'm not opposed to it at all. I'm just what they call a lazy programmer, and I'll show you what I do with my SQLite to set it up. So I've got that, and we'll make a DB connection, and we'll enter the advanced parameters later, and we'll go ahead and create the analysis here. Now this one is absolutely simple. I'm going to create a new file, and it's going to be my file data. That's what I'm going to do, and it's going to have an automatic identifier, SQL, and dbcon is fine, and off we go. And what is it? So I got the file data ID, and what do I want now? I want the file name, and I'll show you why in a moment. And then I got the file ID. Every one of my files start off with a automatic identifier, either usually an integer that gets automatically incremented. And then I do XML data. Now, I want to change that because in version 21, I used to do only XML in there, but version 21 is going to have the ability to do record to JSON and JSON to record. So I'm going to change this because I can get more info there. So I'm going to do stored data. Now, what I'm doing here in this is I'm making that a memo instead. And why is because literally I'm storing the entire record in that data. So the only thing I'm getting to do on here is literally all I have to do is search through here for I want the member and this member ID, and I've got the data for it. Okay? Or I can go get all the members if I want to. So if I store all the members, I just put the file name of members and nothing in the file ID, and guess what? I've got the entire XML array of all the members to redisplay back on the screen. That's what I'm doing. So I've got that, and we're going to stop right there for this. You know, you can always have a registration file. You can have a bunch of different things, but we're just going to stop right there. And we're going to get further into the application because we've got a few things to do. Obviously, we're using a web service, and that's over here, and I'm going to use a web service in this project. And all I do now is that WSDL file, when you generated the web service, you got to keep that. We're going to put that right here. And what that will do then is go get the WSDL description from the web service that I built, and we're going to say, okie-doke, and guess what? Now I've got everything here. Let's go over some of this information. We'll make this bigger so we can see it, and I'm going to zoom in a little bit. Okay? So if we remember right from our base classes and our base information that we had inside the web service, we created all these structures: order detail, member structure. We created the ACD, the order header, all of these things that we were returning. We created them all. Well, what happened was that generated every one of them. So when I imported, guess what I got? I got my ACD order header. I got my member structure there with all the fields to it. I've got my return structure for the member data. I got my order detail. I've got everything I need. Everything I need for it. Okay, including just the simple return of whether we got a true or false and whether we needed a message for it. That's what we've got. Okay, so now that I've got all that, what do I got to call? Well, now here's each one of the procedures. Remember, we had the global procedures that we created on our web service that we utilize. Well, now they're imported in here, and I can use them directly like this, but we must understand something. You are returning XML data. So number one, it's all case sensitive. If you assign the value or do a, what we call a deep assign, I can't remember their term for it, but basically if you're doing assign and they're matching field to field, they are matching case as well as value. So if member is all lowercase on one and member is uppercase on another, they will not match and you will not see the data. So always make sure that you're basically structuring them exactly the same. And I'm going to show you how I do it to make sure that I can become semi-idiot proof, which is a tall order on most occasions. So bottom line, here's what we got. We've got all this, so now we're ready. I can go get web services from other areas out there. I can get REST services and bring in information from other tools and stuff out there on the web. We've been working on several different REST functions, including starting to look at, you know, putting credit card processing, all kinds of things in mobile applications. So this is something that we've been working on and looking at some of these items, going through it. So now we got this. So all we need is let's get some screens going so that way we can actually see some data. So the first thing I want to do is, well, let's not quite go to the screens yet. We need to create something to store and get our data. That's what we've got to do first. Sorry about that, I almost forgot. So I'm going to create a new class, and that class is going to be, I can separate all the classes or I can use a common data class. That's the two things I can do at the moment. So we're going to separate members, and then I'm going to take all of the order information and put them into a common class, so that way you have a chance to see how both of them work together. This is why I think we may have to have 2 sessions before this is over with, okay? and you know, something to think about. So let's go with this one. We're going to call it members class. We're going to add the class. Now, it's blank. What do we do? Well, here's where I go back to my structure over here. I'm going to go back to the class test, and I'm going to go up and get all the member data, member structure data up here. Won't work with me. There we go. I'm getting a little bit of hesitation here. There we go. Come on. I wonder why this thing's doing that. I'm getting it now. It's just trying to be slow for me. Google's Hangouts is messing with my screen because it's off a little bit. Let's try that. Yeah, that was it. Google Hangouts is trying to get half the screen and can't figure out what to do. So I'm going to just cut and paste this. I'm going to Control-C it. And I'm going to come up here and I put it above the class. Okay, that's what I do. I put it above the class. Now, the only difference is I don't want to confuse it with the member structure coming from the web service. Okay, so I'm going to change it slightly, the name slightly, in order to cover with it. So what I do now is just put it MB for mobile. Okay, so and usually in kind of, and this is where I do it. So I got so now I got member mobile is the structure instead. I got to do two things here in the member class. One is I got to have an array of it. So AR rec, that's my array of records, is array of member mobile. And then I have my rec is member mobile. Okay. And we're going to save this for the moment because that's what it's looking for. It can't quite get all the IntelliSense straightened up. So now I've got, right now, I can get the array of all the members and I can get a single record of it. So I've got to create a couple of methods in here. And the methods I got to create is, number one is I need to have a file save method, which basically saves it to my local database. So I'm going to do that. I'm going to have a file save method. Other one is I'm going to have a web service fetch. That's fetch web service. And I'm going to have a file, fetch file. You just call that just fetch data. Okay. We're going to combo this whole thing so you kind of watch here what we do. Okay. All right, so I've got this file save and fetch. And so let's go through the web service first. Well, I want to do this first. First thing out of the hole is that I want to see if there's any local data. If there's no local data, then I want to go fetch the web service. Then I'm going to get the web service also just to make sure everything is done. So here's where I can do a setup for that, as well as fetching the web service data as well. So let's kind of look through these two things and deal with what we have to get the information. In order to get the information from the web service, we have to declare the variables from the web service and do things with it. So let's come down here to our web service, class test, and what I want to do is get the members. Now we got the member structure, but we also got the member return structure. All I do is drag it over and drop it down. It's going to ask me for my variables, so I want to do my return data. We'll go member data. is member return structure, because I'm going to get the whole thing. Then at that point is we can actually call the members. So we got fetch members, and I'm going to bring that over here. And I've got a where clause there. What's what it's telling me is where clause. Well, if I wanted to send a where clause, like give me everybody from the state of Texas, give me everybody from Dallas, give me everybody from Knoxville or Nashville, I can send the where clause. So I have there, and I can add that here. If you remember right, on our members, we send the where clause, and we just add it to the end of the statement and make sure that we're not doing anything wrong. But we got to return the data. So we're going to do a WS data equals that information. What that is now is that when we go fetch the members from the class test web service, we're going to return it back into this mem return structure. That mem return structure is going to have all the member data. It's going to have a ret val and a message both that says, hey, it was successful, not successful, and here's what the reason is, as well as here's all your data. And we can look through this when we run this, and you'll see how we're going to actually test this immediately right now after we get done with this and move forward. You can't test directly out of a class, but we'll create a little global procedure down here just to be able to test our classes to make sure we got the data coming back before we develop a screen one. It just makes it easier. So what's the last step we've got to do? We've got to take it from that data and actually put it into an array up there. My first step is if my WS data dot ret val equals false, I'm going to at that time result false. Actually, the message. I'm going to do the message. That gives me my error. Okay. Now, if it's not false, at this point in time, I can go ahead and start writing in the loop to get it into the array. So I'm going to, at this time, for each local record of the WS data dot member data, I can now start loading it. So I've got the rec structure up there. And since I cut and pasted it, guess what? I can use the assign methods to do this. And then all I have to do is add my AAR rec, a record structure. And that's all said and done, we'll have data. So let's take a look and walk this through on how we do things. So I'm going to create my little local globals, okay? And create me a new global procedure. Test stuff. And here I'm going to say member data is member class, members class. So I've got the whole thing now, okay? And all I'm going to do is now do a members data. Let me save this thing. Okay. And I'm going to tell it to fetch my web service. And I'm going to send it no where clause because I want everything. Okay. Okay. So ret val is string equals. Oh, I know what I did wrong here. Okay. All right, so first turns value in operation. Okay, so now let's run this. So I'm going to hit the little go button here. I'm going to stop it right there, and we're going to go. So now I stop it, detailed in, step, and I'm fetching everything. We're going to look at this process here. Now it's done, so let's look and see whether we got anything back in our data. Well, we got a true, no message, and here is our member data. So we now have every one of the records, all 7 of the records came in. So we have Zeke, and we have Zach, and we have, I know it's kind of hard to see, Larry Peterson's there. And basically, we've got everybody coming in. The difference is you can see the member ID did not come down with it. So why isn't the member ID coming down with it? Well, okay, this is where we kind of get into, all right, what happened there? So we got all the rest of the information. That didn't come down, so I'm going to do a rec member ID equals my LREC member ID. And that is the difference. Let's declare that. And this is the reason why I name them different, because if they were the same, you'd have to put a little deal on there. So we're going to do this a little different there. All right, so now let's test it and see it again, whether or not that it works like it's supposed to. Go, run the procedure, hit it, detail. I'm going to stop right in the middle of my loop and say go, because I want to see the record. There it is. Member ID is an XSD identity. That's why I was telling everybody you need to see this, because the member ID is what you really want to look for here, okay? So now we're going to go step through it again and continue this process until we get down to here. So I'm going to take this one off and say continue. Now we can look at this data again. So we can look at the WS data again here. We're not getting it from the web service. That's where we're not getting it from. And continue. Okay? So we're getting data from it. I got to figure out why we're not getting it from the web server. So fetch members. So we're not getting it here. That's why it's named different. Republishing. Publish the deal and we'll get them this time. Just a moment. So now that I've tested the members here, I can safely say that I'm going to get my data back from there and I'm going to have a pretty good time of it. So how do I save this? How do I get this data saved once it's in the array? Well, the one thing that I've got to do before I, in a lot of areas in here, I got to check to see if the internet's connected. So we're going to do that here in a minute as well, if that's been going around anybody's mind. But we also need to save this file. So at this point is I've got an array of members and I want to store it in that local file. This is fairly easy to do. So I'm going to H reset my file data. And then I'm going to say file data dot file ID is 0 because I'm going to save it all. File data dot file name equals members. And then I'm going to have a buffer up here. Okay. And what that's going to do is give me the ability to serialize the data. So now I can do a serialize my ARREC into my F buffer. And that is going to be, I can do JSON or XML. I'm going to do XML at this point in time. And then file data dot stored data equals my F buffer. HAD. Now, that basically stored everything in XML into that record, and all I do now is read it right back out again and unpack it back to the array, and guess what? I've got all the records that I kept and stored before. I'm good to go. Now that I've published the fix in the class test, I'll show you what I had to do. It was member sysid instead of member ID, so I had to assign that manually. I need to go ahead and check to see whether I need to update this. If you are using the SCM, there'll be one other item in here, and one of them will say check in or check out. Make sure it's checked out before you do the update. If it's checked out before you do the update, then you'll get whether or not you need to update the class. Now, since I didn't change any parameters or anything, I really didn't need to do that. So let's go back down to my test stuff. We're going to run this one more time, make sure I get the member ID this time. And then we'll start developing the member screen and going for it. Okay. Get all my data. So now let's look at my member data now, and we have, there they are. SysIDs are right there. So I've got the member IDs now is what I need, and I can continue. All right. So we've done that. Now what's the next step? Well, we need a screen sooner or later. Somebody's got to see what's going on. So let's go ahead and start building our screens. We're going to do new window, make it just a straight window. You can do any one of the images here and however you want to do it. I'm going to do a standard, so I'm going to do a table blank, wizard blank, so I'm just going to do a blank. Now it's got me set up for a window. Now a lot of times when I develop these things, I will create a template and use a template over here. Templates of windows set up how I want this to look. Okay? 99 times out of 10, I do not use the version of straight up and down for this, but we will in this instance here. So let me zoom this out a little bit so you can see the whole screen. And I'm going to create something here. Now I got two choices to create. I can create a looper or I can create a table, either one. Okay? If you discuss this with Pete, he's going to say you got to have a looper, period, deal with it. But you can go either direction. It kind of depends on what I want to do. I'm going to go ahead and create a looper. That way Pete won't fuss at me after the show. And we're going to put a bunch of the information on the looper as we go through this. So let's go ahead and create the looper. Vertical, we're going to put it right here. And we got to fill it by programming. They have not yet exposed the variable like you can in WINDEV. As soon as that happens, believe me, life will be easier. But right now, we're going to have to fill it by programming, which is fine. It's not a big deal. And we got the number of columns, which we're going to leave as 1, and we'll call it LP members. Okay. And there we go. We got the record here. Okay. Inside the code, what do I got to do? Well, I got to declare the member data. Now, a lot of times, if I'm going to use this throughout the entire project, I will declare the data part, the data portion of that, in the project code, so that way it's active and available through the entire project. And we'll do that. So right now, I just need the member record. And in order to do the member record, you remember we had the structure above the class. That means I got to specify the class, then the structure with it. So now I can do is members class, and then put a period. And what do I got? I've got the member MB right there, which is my structure of the record itself. That's what I got. In my project code, go in here, and member data is member class. Okay. All right, so let's do a save as and give this a name, and I'm going to call it W main because it's going to be my main screen. And basically it's going to be a listing of my customers. So I've got that, and I'm ready to put some fields on the screen of some information so that way we can start displaying things. Okay. Can't do that, Pete. So here we go. Let's go ahead and create some fields up here. So I'm going to do some static fields, and that's going to be the member name. And let's see what other information do we have there. So let's go in here, the members class. And so we got the name. I put the name in there. You're not going to see it when it runs, but at least I know where it is now on the looper. That's the biggest key, is knowing where the thing is on the looper. So I've got the name here. And then I'm going to create the city. And I will put in the state. And what else do I have? Oh, the email. We got to have the email in there. Oop, come back here. And we'll put in his email address. All right, now we got those. We got to go into the looper and create the attributes for it so we can actually fill in some data. Okay, so we got a new ATT name. Control is my static name. Property is the caption. And I don't link it to anything because we're doing this manually. We're going to do an ATT city. ATT state. And ATT email. Okay, now I've got all those. What's the thing we want to do here? Well, we got to get the data in it. So pretty simple. At the end of the initialization, I put an init function, create the local procedure, and in there, I'm going to do two things. Number one is I need to check to see if I got any data in the array at all. Okay, so the first thing out of the hole is I'm going to do a member data fetch data. Now that should get anything from the file that's there. Okay, inside that fetch data, usually I would have the deal to pull it out of the local data. And since I'm not going to have any there, that's fine. So the next thing I'm going to do is if my member data rec empty true, then I'm going to go and do the member data fetch WS because I need some information. It's going to have no where clause to it. I want to get everybody in there. Okay. Once I have that, now I can rock and roll because now I can sit there and say for each for index equals 1. Don't forget the underscores this time. Member data dot ARC. And looper add LP member, add line actually. And I get to add each of the items. I got the name, city, state, zip, so member data, ARC, NDX, and I put in the name. Here's where life gets a little cheating. Again, I'm part of the lazy programmers bunch. City, state, email. Now, let's not forget, since this isn't a net, we want to make sure there's nothing in the looper in the first place. So looper, delete all, LP member, so that way there's nothing in there. And then we're done. So if I ran this, and we're going to run it locally first because I want to make sure it works here before we actually generate out the process. So hang on a second here, and we'll run it locally. If I can get it, drag it over here. It's running right now, so hang on just a second. Won't move on me. Oh, I'm stopping, that's right. It does not like. Oh, currents, Andy. All right. Try this again. As you can see now, we got each one of the names coming in. So now we've gone that far, let's see whether or not that is going to work under the Android, because we've all kind of figured out if we mess with mobile much at all is that it may work there, but it may not work as an Android itself. So we're going to go ahead and set up and generate the Android and go this far. So let's make sure my main here is the first, there's a 1 beside it because that's what I want it to be, and we're going to go to the project generation. Generate, class test mobile, root accounting is fine, that's fine, we'll leave that there. Major version 1. If you're going to actually distribute this out there on the Android App Store and things like this, you really got to create the file to click keys. It's pretty easy to do. Just do this, and what it does will create those, and then you've got them here, and you go on. Okay? And tell it that you got the signing the application. That way it's all safe and everybody's deal. You might have to get a few other things. I've got them already, an SSL certificate for all of that. And you just keep stepping through each one of these until you get down here where you says, okay, what's the version, minimum version you want to run it on? Whether you want to do it on the internal memory of the card, which is fine. There's some advanced stuff if you want to put it there. Not necessarily unless you've got a specifics. I would ignore it right at the moment. Then it says copy. Turn that off. If you're anything like me, it takes a while for that emulator to come up, and it has not worked out well for me, so I don't use it. So turn that off. And it may be just my machine. Believe me, it may work well on anybody else, but for me, the way I've got my Java and everything set up, it hasn't worked well. And it's not WINDEV. It's my machine. So we're going to generate the archive. And as soon as this is done, we can actually use that BlueStack to run it. Now, since I installed that BlueStack, which is the Android emulator, all I have to do is double-click on the APK file, and it will actually install it in BlueStack for me. So I'm going to show you how that works too, and we'll be pretty much here on this. Now what I'll end up doing is we're going to have another session to fully explore mobile devices, and we'll go a little bit further with this, because one of the things I'm learning right now is trying to get through and work on some iOS stuff to get through all the pieces on it, which is fun when you talk about the Apple Store and things, what it can do. So all of that has to, there's all kinds of little things that you have to get through in order to get it on their stores or be able to use it locally, things like that. And you have to get through all of those little pieces to work with. Is there any questions at the moment up there that we have to deal with at the moment?
No questions currently. They're either all completely stunned or getting it.
More than likely stunned. I'll go with stunned. Okay.
You'll go with stunned because it strokes your ego.
Yeah, I like that myself. It's just me. So you can see what happening here right now. All right, Wolfgang. So you got the class test mobile. You see what I did there is I double-clicked it, and BlueStacks was installing it. Okay. So now I'm going to run the BlueStacks, and it should be sitting there waiting for me in just a moment here. Hopefully everything's cooking. All right, we're going in there, and guess what? There is my class test mobile right there. So I'm going to run that, and if everything's good to go, so it does not like my fetch deal there is what it doesn't like. That's where you get into some of the differences between what you can do and what Android will do and what you can do locally, and that was kind of on purpose there. I wanted to make sure everybody could see that. So in order to fix that problem and deal with it, I'm going to go straight into my Fetch WS, and this is what failed. That wrecked the deal. I know this is supposed to work perfectly without an issue, but it obviously does not. So I want to now put each one of the items on there. Here's my cheats, guys. You get to see how I cheat this stuff. Right there, I'm holding down the Alt key, and hitting that. Now I get all my equals all at once. Then I'm over here, and I hold down my Alt key again. Get all the fields, because I know they're named the same anyway. And then hold down my Alt key here. Actually, I made a mistake, but too late now. Control V. Usually I put the equal sign and the LREC in there. Cheat. I type them both in so that way they're already there. So, oh, that's the wrong one. I got to do it.
You could do the same. Just drag it down and start typing. And then
yeah, I'm already past that. I got 2 more to do, Wolfgang.
Then you're not the ultimate cheater.
I'm not the ultimate cheater, but then again, I'm trying to talk and cheat at the same time, and it's kind of like walking and chewing gum at the same time. And
I know you can't multitask.
Yeah, so you can only multitask so much. Okay, now I want to generate it again. So, and the reason why I did that to start off with is because I've seen that out there on the Google Plus several times where something's not working right. Why doesn't it work on the same on the Android? That should work. You would think it would work. It does not.
On a similar kind of thing, I don't know if you've come across, when you have, example, want to take a count of how much in the table is, like table count of a certain. I found that once in a while, table count function fails on me, but if you use table occurrence, dot occurrence, it works better.
I've always used the occurrence. I never really used the table count.
Yeah.
Because, it's a property of the array.
Yeah.
So I just really hadn't had an issue with it. That's the reason why I use it. And the same thing I do with the empty.
Yeah.
Didn't know whether it has anything in it or not. I just use the empty. So.
And for some reason, once in a while, it just fails, the table count.
Yeah.
And it's for no rhyme or reason. It works 100 times, and then the 105th time or whatever, it just doesn't count.
Yeah.
And I found the occurrence, it never does any issues since I've used it. So I've got into the habit of using the property instead of the function.
To me, the properties are going to be quicker because they should be already calculated anyway.
Yeah, I think it's really.
And if you use a function, obviously you're going to take whatever time for that function
to run first,
to run it. Yeah, it's going to have to in order to do that. So, I kind of run into that. Okay, we're looking at that. Guess what? There is our data. So we now have each one of those individuals, and we have tested it. You could actually move this directly onto your device. I will put the APK out there. You can put that on your phone, or you can put it on your tablet, and it will run just like it does in this BlueStacks. Okay, and that's the reason why I like it, because it's just real easy to test this stuff, and then I can get it on the device itself and work with it. There's also one out there for the iPad. It's called iPadian. I don't want to fire that up because I've not used it yet, but it's called IPADIAN, iPadian. And that is supposed to do the same thing for the iPads. So that gives you a chance, without having to go through a bunch of hoops, to be able to test your product without ever getting it off your PC if you don't want to. Makes life a little easier. And of course, your final test really needs to be on the device itself, because obviously I didn't build this. I don't know how it works or what it does, but it seems to do everything that I needed it to do. I've even done the maps on there. Now, some of the graphics that comes up are pretty ugly. That this thing runs with, so it's trying to use something different. But for the most part, if you're doing business apps and you just want to see that the data is working in the APK properly, go through all that without having to have the USB hookup, or using Google Drive to transfer it or Dropbox to transfer it. This is a really quick and easy way to do it, and it works very, very nicely as far as that's concerned. Okay. Now, we've been at this an hour. We're going to go ahead and talk a little bit about the new features of 21 that is out. We've already upgraded some people. Should see a release in mid-month this month. Obviously, we're really high in anticipation of being able to play with some of the things there, especially with telemetry and stuff. So. But I'm going to create another session here where we will go through and do the orders. We'll get in the ACD of adding in a new person. We'll get in the ACD of adding an order, and we will take another couple of sessions probably and finish this entire application in Android before it's done. So we're going to move off the web services and move on to the Android itself and work through it from there. So questions and statements out there, things that people want to discuss, go ahead and throw them out, and we'll certainly discuss them.
Don't see any questions.
No, no questions so far. All right, I'm going to go ahead and switch the screen over to my side.
Go for it. I got to stop sharing? No.
Nope. All right. So, as we mentioned, the new new feature brochure was released this week for version 21, and that's coming just around the corner. So we wanted to kind of highlight some of the new features that have us very excited. So I'm going to step through this. This by no means is an extensive list or anything, just some of the things that definitely caught our eye. First one is a new repositionable note control. The old-fashioned yellow sticky note that now instead of sticking yellow sticky notes on the monitor, we can do it virtually. The really nice thing about this is a lot of these new features are AAF features, which means the end user can also do these things. So, right. Say someone, it's a complex function, and somebody's going to be on vacation. They have someone filling in for them. They can stick a yellow sticky note on that screen that says, "Remember, you have to have the letterhead loaded in the printer before you print this report," or those kind of things that just make your application that much more richer and user friendly. Probably one of the #1 new features that Andy and I are both excited about is the new wire control. Yep. This lets you link controls together via lines and arrows.
Real nifty.
The obvious feature for that is workflows and those kind of graphs, but also from an interface standpoint, you can make a workflow interface that steps them through the process and actually visually shows them the process. Mm-hmm. I think two areas where we're really going to see some stuff with this is factory floor applications, restaurant seating, those kind of things. And again, where this really gets exciting is because end users can now modify the screen, move controls around. These links follow the controls, the lines redraw. So it's really making for a very rich.
Scroll down just a little bit there. That little unit right there, what they're talking about, what they're showing there on that graph. One of the things we got at American Litho is obviously we got printing machines all over the place. I'm going to dearly love to be able to develop a whole huge plasma screen of all the printing functions and show them what's going on every one of the printing engines that's going on there. It ought to be just cool, So just saying.
Yeah. And tying in with that, as I mentioned, is the ability to edit the Windows layout at runtime. Now, before you panic too much, you can shut these features off.
Yeah, we started thinking about this. Oh my God, I don't know if we want to do that, but they have some nice features to it. Yeah.
At the same time,
if you have a window that is used in two different departments in a slightly different manner, those two departments can tweak that window to what makes sense to them. One of the things that really got me excited about this was feature number 16 says that I can run my application via the Go button, in debug mode from the IDE, move the window around. When I come back to the IDE, it offers me the chance to make those changes
permanent
in the development.
No, that's just too cool.
That's cool.
So now, if you're demoing the application to some folks and they say, well, this should be here or there, you can make those changes on the fly, come back to the IDE, and apply those changes. So I think there's some real power there that I can't wait to see.
And the other thing that I found interesting, and just on that one also, that they say if you do adjust it, every time you go in, it kind of reminds you that this window has been adjusted. So it's not as if it's non-diploma that you do, like, what the hell is going on this screen here?
Yeah.
It actually lets you know, so the end user knows it's not the original screen as per what the programmer put down.
Yeah. Basically what they've done is the stuff that we had the ability to do via a dashboard now can be done on any window at the control, which is very exciting.
Yeah.
There's a number of features that all get kind of wrapped together as WD Analytics. There's a whole new level of runtime information that you can track as far as how your application is used, which windows and controls are used, how often they're used.
We will certainly go through full webinars on this one.
It looks to be very exciting. One that really caught my eye was number 118, which says that a user can be running your application, get a crash, it can capture that debug log, send it up through WD Analytics, and you can open your application in the debugger at the point of the crash, view all the variable values and so forth, which is going to be a whole lot easier trying to figure out where the crash came from. You know, because what is the number one issue we have? Users say, I crashed, and you ask them, well, what were you doing?
I didn't do anything.
So that feature alone, you know, probably won't mean a lot to me because my applications never crash, but for some others it may be very useful.
I got to go put on my waders.
And to put the pressure on Andy, I'm very excited to see how he incorporates all this stuff into his Project Pro application.
Oh, it's gonna be neat. It's gonna be neat.
The other part of that one, somewhere I read, is also attached to heat maps, so you can actually see where they click and move around the most on the screen.
Yes, exactly.
Oh, I don't want to know what them people do with the mouse.
All right. You can see which elements are used in which configurations. This is a feature that to some people doesn't mean anything. I use a single project for multiple configurations. I have one project that generates a website, a web service, 2 Windows services, and 3 Windows executables, all out of the same project file. So there's a lot of elements of the project that are in this configuration, not in that configuration. Previously, the only way I could see which configurations they were in, I had to go into each configuration and see whether that element was included or not. Now I can, from the element, say a window, a page, a procedure, I can say, show me all the configurations this is included in, and I know which ones it is or isn't included in. So if you develop in that multiple configurations method, that's going to be a huge feature. There's some stuff that they've done with the multi-language enhancements. I haven't got to see them yet to see exactly what they are. The one that caught my eye the most was number 46, which sounds like they've made that IDE translation of captions and so forth screen a little more user-friendly and easier. And I'm excited to see exactly what that is, because
that translation from English to American is a pain.
It is. It really is.
And also, what they've done, apparently you can select more than one language and by default put in for all of them in the meantime. And the other thing what apparently is that where instead of saying custom 1, 2, and 3 language, you can actually rename it to whatever you want. Yeah. Which is great.
We don't have custom languages, and he won't allow me to put in Texan.
Yeah. The number 55 is Skin Template Generator, which previously, you started with one of their defined skins and then just kind of tweaked your app from there. Or I think Glenn has done some stuff showing you how to create your own skin, but you're juggling chainsaws to accomplish it. Now there's actually a skin template generator that should make that entire process much easier. So if you're developing in a corporate environment where you're developing multiple projects, but you want them all to have your corporate look and feel, you can now create your own custom skin for that and use that for all your projects. So that'll be an exciting feature for some users. Number 78 is very exciting, and if it's anywhere near as good as they say it is, I'm going to fly to France and kiss the developer. So look out.
Don't do that. They may stop.
You might shock them.
If you work with large analysis and the SEM,
yes.
especially if that SEM is remote, the checking in and out of the analysis currently is painstaking. I've got one very large project that's hosted on a UK SEM server, and I lose 30 minutes of work anytime I need to make a change to analysis because of the check-in, check-out process.
There goes that theory that you don't make mistakes.
Yeah, exactly. If users would quit asking for new features, I wouldn't have to change the analysis.
Oh, okay.
What they've done is they've restructured the way the analysis is stored in the SEM that has reduced the amount of data that needs to go back and forth with that check-in, check-out. I can't wait to see how that feature works. That one is very exciting.
I think it's great stuff.
Yeah.
Now, of course, I probably am going to lose about 3 or 4 billable hours a week where I'm sitting watching the little circle run, but oh well.
You won't be able to run off, make the coffee, have a sandwich, come back, and still get paid for it, will you?
Exactly. Conditional target and configuration code now declared in the code. You can now say,
that is awesome.
If this is
awesome.
for Windows executable, do this code. I've actually had a workaround I've been using for a while with the project info function where I've done that for configurations. The problem is it causes me false compile errors. I'm hoping this new method prevents
apparently
those false
doesn't,
compile
according to the
errors.
documentation, yeah.
Yeah, the way you were supposed to do it with the conditional target stuff in the IDE, the code editor, was just, it was so clunky and had some real warts to it.
Yeah.
I gave up using it. I think Andy gave up using it.
I did.
It just didn't work well. So we're
this
excited.
This is going to work out great in the classes because I had a lot of things that was conditional based upon whether you were running a service or not running a service, whether you're running Windows or mobile, and now I can put those back in.
Yeah, and you know, again, with me doing all my configurations under one project, I have a lot of that type of code in my apps. Number 101, get country list. Doesn't sound like it's a big deal, but right now I maintain an array of countries and ISO codes that will now just be a simple function call to get that list of country and ISO codes. And you know, in today's environment, there's a politician somewhere redrawing countries every other week, so that's actually a bigger deal than you would think. 106, generate procedure stubs based on a WSDL. What this is going to do is create, when your WSDL defines all the functions and the parameters of that function for that web service, this is going to create you a set of stub procedures for calling those functions.
Yep.
Andy and I are excited to see just how this will or won't boost our productivity when we work with a new web service.
Yeah.
It might give us kind of a starting point to make life a little quicker and easier. We'll just have to see. RTL tooltips. This is one of those ones that's just going to make your interface much more attractive. Instead of that ugly single line pop-up tooltip, you now can use rich text in the tooltips. You can provide a lot more information in the tooltip. And again, this is a feature that end users can do, so they can provide their own help text in those tooltips. So I think this is, along with help information, a lot of times I use tooltips as kind of drill down type of information that you hover over a control to get details. So that's going to provide me with the ability to do some very, very cool stuff. So I think that's a small feature that could lead to a lot more richer interface. In a similar vein, clickable links and captions.
I like this.
That's another way for you to create a drill down type of interface that's just makes your application much more user friendly.
And it's tidier. It's tidier.
Yeah, exactly. Much tidier than having a separate button, that sort of thing. You now can create Windows 10 Universal applications, which again just shows PCSoft's commitment to new technology and keeping us, on that leading edge. We're not falling behind like certain other environments are. Although they're going to have .NET support pretty soon in that.
That started like 9 years ago.
Number 188 is kind of a behind-the-scenes feature, but I got a feeling that moving forward, it's going to be a huge shift for us. They are using XAML for the screen layouts. XAML is that standard XML technology that Microsoft has, kind of heralded for laying out screens and so forth. I'm not sure what that will or won't do for us, but I got a feeling that that's going to mean a lot moving forward. But more than anything, it shows me, instead of PCSoft doing it their own way, they're using that open standard that's out there, which again just opens up the door for us to do other things.
Absolutely.
Andy touched on this one.
I love
JSON, HJSON to record and HRecord to JSON.
I love this.
Every release they get a little better at the JSON stuff. Yeah. And especially if you're working with RESTful services,
that's needed.
You deal with a lot of JSON data.
Well, I'm going to be honest with you. I'll be changing most of my web services to use JSON for this reason alone. Yeah. Because your deal with this is just to touch on this a little bit further and explain a little bit further. There is a memory to file and file to memory function that most people have used within the system. Okay? I don't have to declare or try to maneuver things around to make this work right. This right here tells and it helps me do that entire thing we just ran into with the Android product, where we tried to assign it and it said, nope, classes can't be assigned together like that. This solves that problem. So, I mean, I can do an HJSON to record, and boom, I've got the return result set from the return record from the web service in the record that I want to store it in right then. It's a biggie. It's a biggie to me.
Yeah, it's definitely, yet again shows their commitment to getting those standards supported for us. Now we move on to my area that I lived most of my life in, web dev. The biggest thing that has been talked about the most is their new support for responsive designs. And again, instead of coming up with their own stuff, they've mirrored, and I've still got to see exactly how it's all being generated and so forth, but it's based on that fluid grid design that Bootstrap and other standard web technologies use. Of your screen is divided into a 9x9 grid or a 12x12 grid, and then you define how your controls fit within those grids and how the grids realign based on the screen size. So that's how you get controls to shift down to another line versus going out to the right when they're on mobile, different things like that. So that's all very exciting, and you can pretty well count on most of my webinars this summer will be covering these features.
And when's your Tech Summit?
My Tech Summit is right after I complete the boat and move on to the boat. But if Andy'd get his butt down here and help work on the boat for a couple of weeks.
Oh, no. It'd be more like him pointing and saying, can you do that? Can you do that? I'm working on this webinar, Andy.
Exactly. Yeah. Number 738, 739 is a bit technical, but it does two things for me. One, it shows that they understand, because a lot of people have this misnomer that responsive design is the silver bullet that solves everything. Responsive design has its places, but depending on what you're doing, how you're doing it, especially with business apps like most of us develop, there's only so far you can go with responsive design. Sometimes you have to create screens specifically targeted for that mobile device. You know, it just is what it is. You know, you've got to remember they're using their finger and touch, different things. So a lot of times you still wind up creating specific. You know, checkout is a prime example. You know, if you try to do checkout the same desktop and mobile, it's probably going to be a compromise that isn't great for either. So there are areas like that where you still need to create 2 pages. We've always had the ability to create pages targeted for mobile, targeted for the desktop, and then via code we decide which page to host. Well, with this new feature, we're able to do that more at the server level so that the URL stays the same for both of those pages instead of us redirecting to a second page. What that means is Google referencing and those sort of things for SEO will be much better because the page will be referenced the same whether it's mobile or web. They finally have gotten clone control added to WebDev. This is a feature that's been around in WinDev for a while. It's not something you use every day, but there are certain types of things when you're doing very dynamic interfaces that it's very cool to be able to create controls on the fly.
I wish you had it.
Yeah, and there's been some times where I could have done some really neat things in WebDev with it. So I'm excited that we finally have it. And you know, I couldn't resist. I don't often use clone control, but when I do, I want to do it in WebDev.
Oh Lord.
Yeah, I know. Cheesy,
bad, terribly.
Number 744, cross-reference of styles. What this does is show you either a WebDev or CSS style, every control, etc., that is using that style. This is another huge feature, especially with large sites with lots of styles. Sometimes I'll decide, well, I want to change this style and go up a font. Well, I try to avoid doing overrides as much as possible, because if you're doing overrides everywhere, you're kind of defeating the purpose of using styles. But sometimes I don't know where all this style is used because there's no way for me to find that out currently. So I'm not sure what all I'm affecting if I change that base style. Now I will be able to see everywhere that style is used, so I'll know whether or not a change there is going to affect something that's going to cause me a problem. There's a new and improved navigation bar control, which is very much a standard style navigation control that's used in responsive designs today. So adding that definitely is an exciting thing. Along with that, they have, it's unclear whether it's a completely new control or if it's just enhancements to the existing menu control, but they've done a lot with the menu control. The one that really caught my eye is 755, which says that the new menu control is CSS based.
Now, the question would be is whether or not you can add a CSS menu.
Yeah, well, the menu control is generated using CSS code. Which
well, what I was talking about is some of those third-party menus out there that are CSS based.
Yeah, I'll definitely be digging into that one, but if nothing else, it means via jQuery I can do whatever the heck I want to that menu now, where before I couldn't because of the way it was generated. It wasn't CSS based. So it's definitely very promising. And number 810 is, they really buried the lead on this one. I didn't hear any mention of this until Andy mentioned it to me.
Yes.
All of the array functions are now supported in browser code.
That is nice.
That is huge.
That's a biggie for me.
Yeah.
I mean, I've got some huge data requirements at American Litho, and
that will save us a lot of round trips to the server.
Absolutely.
I've got a lot of workarounds where I make AJAX calls to the server, stuff an array into a text field that's separated, and then extract it out over in the browser code and stuff it into a JavaScript array. And there are so many workarounds and JavaScript code and so forth that now I can remove. I'm very excited about that one.
I am too.
And then the mobile, since this is Andy's area he plays in far more than me, I'll let him kind of talk about these.
The fact that they have expanded the control sets that you can use, and they've been doing an excellent job with this. And there's a couple, 2, 3 things that have been in the latest sets of Android and iOS and different things like that. So there's a few things in there that I want to talk about. One is they added in the organizer control. So now if you do scheduling and you have it set up to work through things, then you can easily transfer that to the mobile device. So that way, if somebody needs to walk around with a mobile device and see the what schedule they have, what appointments they have, things like this, you can now get it on their tablet, which is great. It's a nice little feature. And that's the 454. So we got that all in there. Then 458, the endless looper. Okay. Now, obviously, in my opinion, part of the issues with Android or any device is the amount of data that is being handled. Okay. I don't believe that you need to particularly keep a lot of data on your device. Okay, I try to minimize that data. But if you are in the instance here where you do have quite a bit of data coming at you, the endless looper is going to help you. It's going to speed up the looper processing because it's going to load only the amount of records at the time and then load more on demand is what it's going to be. So that the endless looper is not only in the mobile, but it's also in WINDEV itself. So, and I believe I think it's in the WebDev too. So we're going to have to see how that works. I'm hoping it's in the WebDev too because I can use that too. But so the endless looper is kind of important if you deal with a lot of data. Horizontal swipe. That's something that's in a lot of products right now, is where you can swipe to the left. My email's that way on my phone. I swipe it to the left, it's got a little undo if I want to bring it back in. Otherwise, in essence, it's deleted it. So that allows me to do the same thing as what all the other newer applications are on the Android and iOS. You can just swipe it to the right, and basically it's like a delete, or it's an action. You can do whatever you want to do with the action, but it's an action that you can deal with. As far as that's concerned. Facebook. I'm an old guy. I don't really see the greatness of having a Facebook login, but it's there.
I can't imagine having too many friends.
Do what?
What it does is it creates, because most people are not as old as Andy, have Facebook already on their phone, and it creates the ability to have a single login so that they don't have to have a separate login to your app.
You're correct.
They can use their Facebook login to
now
log
that's
into
the
your
part
app.
I do agree with. I do agree with that for commercial applications. Having a single login where say, well, I want to use my Facebook login to do that, that's fine. I personally do not like Facebook on my frickin' phone. Okay? It keeps going off, and I don't like it. So I'd rather have the Google Plus one, because that one I do use a lot of times. But my wife would love to have the Facebook one. So it's worked out nicely. But if you have a single login, that works out great. I kind of, so that's the reason why I threw it up there.
Probably has something to do with your wife has more friends than you two.
Well, she's the only reason I have friends. So, we go around that deal. So now, here's the things to me that are really the highest importance. Two of the things that's came out lately is background geolocation and low energy Bluetooth, the Internet of Things. Okay? Well, they're supporting both of those. If you're dealing with any travel type applications, things like this, where you're using the mapping functions and the stuff in Android or iOS, that background geolocation is going to help you out tremendously, because we obviously know turning on the GPS itself and keeping it in the foreground eats up the battery big time. So this minimizes the amount of battery usage that the person uses, which is a great little tool if you're having to do background things. Like one of the products is a Follow Me. So if you've got an individual or a company that's actually doing deliveries and stuff, and you want to watch the truck drive through the little streets as it goes through, well, you got to use the Follow Me to do that, and have internet, obviously. But that geolocation will help you do that. The low energy Bluetooth and the Internet of Things, here's where things kind of get great, because there's all kinds of Internet of Things coming out. I don't know whether or not I care whether my plants are good or not, but when you're dealing with accessing Bluetooth low-level lighting, there's going to, the Internet of Things is going to mushroom over the next couple of years.
Yeah. Well,
it really
Alan
is going
and I
to
do a lot of that with his water metering.
Okay, so he's doing the Internet of Things with that. Okay, so
there's some exciting things that we'll be able to do with that as well.
Be able to walk into your house. There's a lot of things that's coming out now that have the little the Bluetooth that you can put into your house, and your wall plugs, changing out the wall plugs for it, and things like this, and give you household stuff, as well as walking through a store and having, bringing up your deal there and showing things in the store that's going on and stuff, because they use the Internet of Things to do that. Finding a location via Bluetooth. One of the key things that we have been talking about at American Litho was they have these IoT pads. They're kind of 3x3 blocks, and they're low energy Bluetooth that you can place on different places, either on the floor, on the wall, and things like this. And with the code there, I can literally tell where the product is based upon that little Internet of Things. So we have a little device out there, an Android device. As it goes through, it picks up those deals and says, I'm here, I'm here, I'm here, I'm here, I'm here. And now we know where they've left the product in an 800,000 square foot warehouse. So it makes a big difference in how to do it, because GPS really doesn't work in the building that well. You got the Apple Watch support now. So you can now work with your Apple Watch supports and things like this. I think that's also good. You've always had a little bit of the Android Watch. Now they've changed a few things with the active wear, so I don't know where that's going. I haven't even messed with it, so I don't know. On another things, the Windows App Store, because of the changes that they've done, you've got the ability now of actually building true Windows 10 App Store applications. And that's going to open up some doors to get into those areas, because the application that you write for the App Store can run on your PC if it's running Windows 10, as well as your device that's a Windows 10 device. So I haven't explored that, but that's one of the things I'm going to kind of cut into, do some R&D on, so I can have basically all three, to where we can build an Android, an iOS, and a Windows 10 app all at the same time and show the results for the same product. Okay? Here's the biggie. Obviously, when you're dealing with Android or you're dealing with iOS, there's a lot more things out there than what you can work with within the product. That means either you're going to learn Java or you're going to learn Objective-C. While all that's nice and fun and learning experience is great, eventually you go, oh my God, I've only learned 17 different languages. Why do I have to go to 18 and 19? So what they've done is they have opened the doors to allow the Maven libraries, which is a bunch of Java libraries in a tool out there that you can look at, bring into your application, and utilize directly through your IDE and get down a Java type function and use it, as well as the Objective-C, which you've got a bunch of set of open source Objective-C functions and things like that you can bring into your iOS app and use them as well. So that kind of opens up a lot of doors on things that has been somewhat excluded in the mobile environment, just from the fact of you would have to learn how to do all of this. And a lot of people just say, I don't have time to learn all that. Well, now that the doors are open, it's the learning curve is more of, I've got it included, how do I call it? That kind of thing, which is a whole lot easier to work with than trying to figure out how to actually develop the Java library to do such and such. So the second question is now being able to go out there and search for what you're looking for and find out how they named it and what they're doing with it. So I think $4.99 is a biggie if you're doing mobile development, for sure. Mobile development it's a biggie for it. So that's kind of our take on the whole thing. All yours, Pete.
All right. Well, that's just an overview of the 900 plus features, the ones that caught our eye of most interest. We have a link from the WINDEV US site where you can download the brochure. I believe Andy posted that over in the Google Plus community.
Yeah, I did.
Everyone download that. See what features interest you. Go up on Google Plus and tell us what features interest you and how you plan to use them. That kind of information is what helps us decide what webinars we'll be doing in the future.
Mm-hmm.
Like I said, you can count on me doing quite a bit of webinars on the responsive web design. I'm sure Andy's going to be doing a lot of this mobile stuff.
Yeah, but I'm going to do some WinDev stuff too. That's one thing we've been kind of lacking on, but they've got some new features and stuff on the WinDev side that I think is absolutely important that Wolfgang's going to, that somebody's going to do for us. And is he run? Did he run already?
No.
Oh, he's still there. Good for him. Anyway.
They've kind of, the last couple of updates, they were very focused on getting web and mobile up to par. Now that they've kind of caught up, you can tell they kind of circled back and spent a lot of time on WinDev this time around, and we definitely have some exciting new stuff from the interface side for WinDev that I'm excited. I still have a few WinDev apps that I definitely can incorporate some of that stuff into.
Well, I'd like to see some of the things, especially with the functionality and the wire diagramming and things like that. So I'm going to be exploring that because of those items, and we'll be doing webinars on that in itself, the wire diagramming and things like this. And then obviously we're going to do full-on webinars on the telemetry. So whoever's first playing with it, feel free to holler. But there's definitely going to be some information on the telemetry stuff that we can use, for sure.
Some good stuff there.
And let's wrap up with, since the Everything was released, announced this week. There's also special pricing for you to upgrade to
before
21
May 31st.
Before May 31st. So it's time to start getting your upgrade turned in so that you can. It's a pretty substantial savings.
It is.
You upgrade before May 31st.
And that is no April Fool's joke.
It's not an April Fool's joke, no.
No,
It's not an April Fool's joke, no.
And I'm working on the WINDEV US site, and hopefully by next week you'll be able to actually have a shopping cart and order online. But between now and then, you're welcome to call the number on the WINDEV US site, because Andy has to deal with all that. I mean, we'll get your upgrades processed, and you can be first in line when the upgrades come out.
Yeah, we'll do that. Of course, if you hear a higher voice, it's actually my wife, not me, but she may answer the phone too. But we're good to go. We're good to go and be able to rock along. Okay.
All right. So that I think wraps us up for today. So I'll let you close it out.
Be good or be good at it. Y'all have a great time. Have a great day. Glad to hear from everybody. Okay. Have fun. Bye-bye.
Have fun. Cheers. Bye.